Good morning. Hello to everyone. Welcome to our first panel this morning that has to do with third space and basically contemporary applications of Castells to the concept of third place, and specifically the space of flows as a core concept of Castells that we have three brilliant researchers who are going to talk to us about. So we have three presenters today, and the presentations are going to be English. Now, this is one of the panels that was suggested to me by the researchers themselves. So the three researchers that I'm going to introduce today, they actually proposed this panel, and it's always a nice thing to see proposed panels because then it helps coherence between the talks. And I've had the pleasure of knowing, especially Fatma and Fiza and Benjamin after that. So this panel is going to be a little bit more collaborative, as I understand it. Yes, Fatma? And it's more like it's going to be like a roundtable at some point,
yes,
and because the talks are very related, the presentations touch on very similar things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present the three speakers together, and then I'll hand over the stage to you, Fatma, and then to Fiza, and then Benjamin. So I am happy to introduce to you all Dr. Fatma Guneri, who has a PhD in marketing, and she also has an executive MBA in designing for social innovation and leadership. So Fatma is a research associate at Hemisphere at our partner university, Université Catholique de Lille. She's a specialist on third places, fab labs, co-working spaces, and the like. And she's also particularly interested in remote working as something very relevant to us today. After Fatma, Dr. Fiza Brakel-Ahmed is going to take the mic, and she's going to talk to us about digital space specifically, and she's going to basically tell us how relevant Castell's notion of space of flows is in today's world. Fiza's main research interest lies in new ways of working, digital nomads, co-working spaces, and the way digital space and work identity interact. As our third speaker, I'm happy to welcome, I think, Benjamin, you've defended your PhD, didn't you? So I think Benjamin just defended his PhD, so congratulations, Benjamin.
He will defend very soon.
Oh, okay, he hasn't. All right. So almost Dr. Benjamin Astier. He's doing, or he has done his PhD in what we call in France SIC, so Sciences de l'Information et de la Communication, and he's a researcher affiliated with Divisu, the laboratory in Valenciennes, and he also is affiliated with Hemisphere, so he's a colleague of Fatma's. So just some housekeeping. So the presentations are going to be consecutive, and at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session to make it more interactive even at the end. The questions can be asked in English and also in French, because our three speakers speak French as well. For the audience, if you have questions, it would be very easy to type your questions here in the chat box, and then I'll make sure to relay all the questions to our speakers. So without further delay, the floor is yours, dear Fatma.
Good morning. I will share my screen. As Mehdi, he mentioned, there will be three consecutive presentations. Fiza, she is my research collaborator. We publish together, we do research together about third places and remote working. And Benjamin, he is my colleague, and he also works on third places, but in a very specific domain, textile. So what I will be doing will be kind of introduction to these three presentations. I will start by the definition of rhythm, which is a very important activity, or which is a very important kind of mobilization in a space. For this, I did choose Henry Lefebvre's rhythm analysis. and I'm sure that most of you, he knows, the sociologue, and he defines rhythm as a kind of togetherness of opposing elements, such as cool and hot, for example, or like the colors like black and white, or like in the music we have these up and downs. All these create together a rhythm, and you can figure out all this together in a space. Secondly, he takes all this togetherness and he creates a movement, and he also calls this movement as a rhythm. But he has an important point while he defines this movement. He absolutely rejects that structural movements have a rhythm. So for him, only rhythm, normal, good rhythm happens when movements are very natural, like your body movement. For that reason, he starts his books by explaining how our body is naturally moving, how we are naturally like speaking, behaving, we have our own reactions, individual reactions, and all these are coherent with our quotidian, like your working activities, like your social activities. So there is again this opposing elements between your own individual rhythm and your social rhythm, because in your social rhythm you oblige yourself to be structured, but your body has its own structure which is very natural, so you need to adapt your body to this quotidian. And then when you are in a space, the form of this activity, this movement completely changed, because space also has its own characteristics. So there are your body, your activity, and the space. This triangle should create a rhythm that you can have at the end a well-being, a passion to what you are doing. To distinguish the structural and non-structural rhythm, he lists some characteristics. If you're in a structural rhythm, your activity is very repetitive, very mechanic, like kind of machinalization. You discover it's not coming from you, it's coming from outside. Somebody did it and you just discover, you observe cycles, like seasons, like day and night, in very organized way. Continuity, it's like a fabrication of some products, like there is a continuity that you need to follow, you don't have another choice. And very mathematics, very quantitative, that you can measure easily. So he refuses the activities which have this characteristic as a rhythmic. So if you want to have a rhythm, if you want to consider your activity as rhythmic, you need to have these natural differences, organic way of, like we say, organic food, for example, like organic way of living, creativity that you need to create by yourself instead of copying, instead of observing, instead of following. Just do it yourself. Linearity, discontinuity, just you should have some stops, you should have some ups and downs, there should be a discontinuity that you can feel your rhythm. And then qualitative, Fiza, I'm sure she will mention this because this is also one of her expertise, that if there is a discontinuity, there is a story behind. And in order to hear these stories, you need to do qualitative studies. You cannot measure this by scales in the quantitative studies that we use. And then there is a temporality which comes after all these elements, after all these rhythmic movement. Then what is the spatial temporal? All these relevance elements come together in a specific time and in a specific space. Then we call this spatio-temporal. So you need space, you need these specific characteristics, and you need a temporality, a time when it will happen, in which moment. And this moment also should be kind of natural. If you do an activity each morning at 8 a.m., this is not a rhythm. But if you do it sometimes at 8, sometimes at 9, sometimes at 7:30, and then you create a rhythm. The very good example to spatial temporal occurrences is the cities, where we have a very natural rhythm. Each individual has their own rhythm. They come together in their own spaces, and these spaces from outside, they have different views. Of course, there are some quarters that you see old buildings are the same, old buildings have the same color, but Henri Lefebvre find this very non-rhythmic. And then I have two example studies to present you in a very practical way these definitions. First one is from a study that we did with one of my students from ISTC, and then she analyzed rhythm in tourism experiences. So I want to share with you a video where she actually shared this experience with you. I think first of all, I need to stop my screen sharing, and then I need to share the video. Just give me 2 seconds, please.
En tant que telle est une notion
Okay. And then now I come back here. Oh. I'm sorry, I just I lost my screen. Do you hear me?
Yes, Fatma, we hear you. Yes.
I lost my screen, Mehdi. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
No
Okay, and then now, I need to just copy here. Sorry for this. Okay.
Vos études ont été réalisées pour mieux comprendre ce qu'était réellement le temps. Le temps en tant que tel est une notion subjective qui dépend de la manière dont on l'appréhende. La plupart des gens ont une conception assez simple du temps. Il s'écoule de la même vitesse pour tout le monde et partout. C'est une représentation de bon sens établie par le père de la science moderne, Isaac Newton.
Just, I want to put subtitles. I'm sorry. Options. No, that one. I want to choose English. I prepared it yesterday, but it's still left. Oh, yeah. Okay. Great. I will restart.
Vos études ont été réalisées pour mieux comprendre ce qu'était réellement le temps. Le temps en tant que tel est une notion subjective qui dépend de la manière dont on l'appréhende. La plupart des gens ont une conception assez simple du temps. Il s'écoule de la même vitesse pour tout le monde et partout. C'est une représentation de bon sens établie par le père de la science moderne, Isaac Newton. Pour lui, le temps est une propriété immuable de l'univers. Il change tout le temps au même rythme. Cette notion semble logique, mais Albert Einstein s'est rendu compte qu'elle était fausse. Il a découvert que le temps s'écoulait à différents rythmes. Cela signifie que le temps pour moi ne sera pas le même temps pour vous. Cette découverte va pulvériser la conception du temps newtonienne de la réalité. Albert Einstein dit que le temps n'est pas une simple donnée universelle, c'est une expérience individuelle. Ainsi, il nous donne une représentation beaucoup plus riche dans laquelle le temps de chacun s'écoule à son propre rythme. N'avez-vous jamais eu cette impression que le temps passait différemment lorsque vous voyagez ? Eh bien, au travers de ce mémoire, je souhaite montrer et exposer les différents éléments qui nous donnent cette impression que le temps passe différemment quand nous voyageons. Il faut d'abord remonter jusqu'à la prise de décision. Il s'agit alors de ma première hypothèse qui vise à dire que l'expérience touristique commence par le choix des composants du voyage. Or, le temps est un paramètre clé des décisions et vont venir façonner le rythme et la temporalité du futur voyage. Nous décidons de partir en voyage parce que nous avons le temps. Nous prenons nos décisions selon notre état d'esprit lié à nos besoins, motivations et attitudes. Autant d'éléments qui façonnent d'ailleurs les typologies de voyage. Des typologies qui vont justifier certains comportements en voyage. Le rapport au temps en voyage ne sera pas le même entre le vacancier rationnel qui déteste le risque et qui aime prévoir, mais qui souhaite aussi vivre de nouvelles choses, ou encore le le vacancier routinier, qui lui se rend toujours au même endroit, qui aime se sentir chez lui lorsqu'il voyage. Le vacancier adaptable, qui adore changer de formule de voyage et qui est tout le temps prêt à la découverte, n'aura pas la même perception du temps que le vacancier hédoniste, qui aime penser, rêver et parler de ses vacances sans vraiment rien prévoir. Nous avons aussi pu observer, au cours de cette étude, que la notion du temps était aussi largement utilisée par le discours de marque. Nous avons d'ailleurs étudié les sites comme TripAdvisor, WeSNCF ou encore Booking.com. En fait, chacune de ces marques, si on analyse bien leur première page, tente de faire gagner le maximum de temps à ses visiteurs en s'adaptant à chacune des psychologies. Cette manière de faire permettra donc de cerner plus rapidement les besoins et les attentes du consommateur et que celui-ci passe plus rapidement sa commande et sa réservation. Lorsqu'il est enfin l'heure de partir, les décisions que nous avons prises en amont, telles que le choix de la destination, les transports, les logements, les étapes, ces décisions correspondent à ce que j'appelle les composants du voyage. C'est ici qu'intervient ma deuxième hypothèse, qui dit que partir en voyage est une rupture de notre routine dans un nouveau contexte. Cette rupture est le résultat d'une distorsion de temps provoquée par de nombreux facteurs vécus lors de notre expérience touristique. Lorsque vous voyagez, les processus neuronaux qui viennent dérégler votre horloge interne sont stimulés. Ils sont stimulés par les composants du voyage, tels que de nouvelles activités, qui peuvent augmenter la quantité d'informations qu'aura à traiter votre cerveau ou vous faire oublier le temps qui passe. Voyager implique très souvent de se déplacer. Or, les transports peuvent être une certaine source d'émotions positives ou inversement, source d'émotions négatives en fonction des individus. Les transports peuvent aussi représenter une source d'ennui. L'individu sera alors plus vigilant au temps qui passe. Celui-ci lui paraîtra donc passer plus lentement. Les voyages peuvent aussi amener à faire des rencontres qui viennent bousculer notre rythme et perception, car notre horloge interne est faite pour s'adapter à notre environnement, et cela implique d'être en mesure d'incorporer le temps de l'autre. De manière totalement inconsciente, donc, l'individu aura tendance à s'adapter au rythme de la personne avec qui il voyage, et cela peut bousculer sa notion et sa perception du temps. Ce mémoire avait pour ambition de montrer que le temps influence l'expérience touristique, en se demandant s'il existe un lien entre les composants du voyage et les paramètres qui modifient notre horloge interne et donc notre perception du temps. Il a fallu dans un premier temps définir les étapes qui façonnent le choix du voyage, construire un questionnaire pour comprendre les différents comportements et perceptions du temps entre les typologies de voyageurs, puis faire le lien entre les éléments clés d'un voyage et les paramètres de perception du temps. Il convenait alors de s'intéresser aux facteurs temporels qui venaient impacter le choix du vacancier à l'égard de son futur voyage. On a pu constater qu'il existait non seulement une corrélation entre le temps disponible et le choix de la destination, mais aussi et surtout un lien entre le temps et le budget accordé. Nous avons pu observer l'importance de la variable temporelle quant au discours de la marque et la manière dont ce discours impactait le vacancier dans ses décisions. L'analyse de comportement de décision a dessiné et structuré des caractéristiques de voyageurs, mais n'a pas réellement prouvé que le temps avait un rôle à jouer dans ces caractéristiques qui sont liées à des facteurs plus individuels que temporels. On peut considérer qu'il existe bien un lien entre les paramètres de l'expérience subjective du temps et les constituants de l'expérience de voyage. Cette corrélation permet d'exposer, mais aussi de comprendre de quelle manière ces deux notions interagissent et expliquer pourquoi nous subissons très souvent une distorsion du jugement du passage du temps. Le temps influence nos comportements de décision. Nos décisions forment notre voyage. Notre voyage influence notre expérience du passage du temps.
Thank you very much for watching the video of my student. Now, the second example is from a study that we did with Fiza and with another researcher student. And then in this study, we measured the frequency of visiting workplaces in different countries. And one of them was France. So just because time is limited, I will show only one example. And as you see here, how in the first part until December, the blue one, you see what is the rhythm, how rhythm was really down because of pandemic, that people were going less and less to their workplaces. And after December, the orange lines you see, we did kind of forecasting what will be happening. Because by looking at your previous rhythms, you can figure out what will be happening later. And then here, actually, there is kind of like we said, we cannot measure it quantitatively, but herein, by using qualitative data, by observing what people did, we try to kind of like take some quantitative results in order to prove that, yes, these forecasting of rhythm exist. Now, after these practical cases, I will go back to the definitions, and now in the final two parts of my presentation, I will speak about Castell's approach to this space aspect, where this rhythm happens. And first of all, I want to mention the term flow, and I want to reinforce my presentation. Actually, I will talk about flow at the end, but it's better that first I give the definition of flow. My reference for the definition of flow is kind of like God of flow. Think that Mihaly, I'm sure most of you know his books, and for him, flow is the happiness, this continuous happiness, which come with your activity. So in order to feel your activity, enjoy your activity, first of all, you need to experience it emotionally. And then if I come back to the Castells, then what happens in this space of flows, in the space where we live this experience, according to Mihaly, it's like kind of like this emotional, sensitive experience. And then Castell explained this. My reference for Castell here, Stelter, 2002. He said this is kind of like stage of your movements in a specific location, but it is not the location which gives the meaning to your movements. It is movement itself. So according to Castell, not the statico, which will give a sense to what you are doing. It is dynamism itself. Then we can make the bridge with the rhythm. So where you have this rhythm, where you have this sensational experience, then you can talk about this space of flows. And then how we can distinguish space and place according to this flow approach. When we talk about space of flows, then there is this movement between things and people. Like in the space, you have the objects. Objects helps you to accelerate your movement, like by using your computer or by using some tools in the space, you enrich your movement, okay? However, when we talk about place, then we talk about the community. Your movement take another color, another meaning, thanks to the community in this place. So in the space, there is you, there are others, but you are talking about your own activity, and the others, they talk about their own activity, their own movement. But if you are in a place, and then you become a community with others, there is the togetherness of your rhythm, of your activity, of your moment. And then finally, what are the objects which enrich the meaning of your activity? So instead of asking what are they, like what is the glass of coffee, what interaction this glass of coffee or cup of coffee create for you? Is this helping? For example, you are an entrepreneur, you are in a co-working space, and is this your cup of coffee which creates the interaction with another entrepreneur in the space? And then I will let the rest, I will let my colleagues to continue for the rest, because when I start to speak about entrepreneurs, space, this means that we have very specific spaces, like kind of co-working spaces, where we have this specific rhythm, and then this will be completed by Fiza and Benjamin, who are the other experts about this subject. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fatma. That's great, and it was lovely to see one of our students here feature in your presentation. It's always nice. I think our director Pierre Turkey is also with us, so I think he's also very happy to see one of our students feature in your research. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
so,
I'm really proud of their works.
Great, awesome. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to Fiza.
Well, good morning, everyone. And I also will share my screen. Okay, so if everything is correct, you can see my first slide. Just one little thing I need to do. There we go. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I will be continuing a bit more about the Castell's notions of space of flows and space of place, and this is the way I'm going to look at it. It's actually already what my colleague and friend Fatma said. The flows, you cannot see it, and the way I am defining it here, of course, based on Castell's, it's the international networks of interactions. But the important thing here is it's fed by digital technology, and it keeps the world economy running. It's abstract and rootless, but the actors need to be in a physical place to function with their computer, with a good server. And that is where I think there is a big risk of inequality, but I will go into that during my presentation. So the space of places, this is a physical space. And also, again, as Fatma also mentioned, you are in a place, you're in a community, and the practices are not abstract. You have something you can touch, the object, your computer, you have a good server, you have, maybe a good desk. And we cannot neglect this and just think, oh, it's so great, you have space of flows, the whole world is connected. Because in the end, it doesn't exactly work like that. At least not now, not the way the world is now. And I will get into that. Here's my next slide. This is just a visual. And here, what I'm trying to show you is, yes, the whole world is in theory connected by digital networks connecting. But, some places which we do need are, let's say, more equal than others. And let me go further on about space of flows. So digital networks all connected. Wi-Fi connects everything. Every human activity nowadays, these are digital networks connecting everything you do, almost. If you really start to think about it, it's everything you do. But then I started to think about this and I said, but wait a minute, does everyone have equal chances and access to the same social networks? And Castells already was doubting this. 25 years ago. And I think he is still right. Because to be able to be, let's say, successful in the space of flows, you need to have a good space of place, like good quality Wi-Fi, good hardware. And do you have access to the same networks? Because there is another strange thing that if you are, let's say I am based in Amsterdam, if you're in Amsterdam and you Google something, you'll get totally different results than when you are in a different country Googling the same word. And I know it sounds very strange, but it's really true. So information is everything. And this means that I have different information, maybe better information than someone who's Googling exactly the same word in another country. And then I have not even spoken about some, bans and red tape like you have in some countries like in China. I'm not even speaking about that. But this creates inequality. Also, I think mainly English has become a very dominant language if you want to be successful in the space of flows. So what I'm trying to say that without the right baggage, you cannot make the most of the space of flows. So this is again a visual where I'm trying to say that the physical location, so therefore the space of place matters much more than we think. And it's all about social capital, it's about the facilities. And that is where I believe inequality kicks in. So I will go to the next slide. And so again, I mentioned this before, space of place, if you have the comfort infrastructure, of, let's say, the more wealthy countries, you have fast and reliable Wi-Fi and electricity. There are many countries today where you never know if the electricity is going to be there. It suddenly is gone, and then you have to wait. So even though in theory, the space of flows is not bound to place because it's digital networks connecting, and in theory, you have access to everything, and you can, in the space of flows, be as successful as anyone in the whole world. It's a bit utopian because it's not true. Place matters. And that's what I think that's also my main premise in this presentation. And again, we have to hand it to Castells. He already had these doubts more than 20 years ago, and he is still right about this. So I wanted to talk a bit, and this is, of course, my research focus, about digital nomads, urban digital nomads, self-employed. With this, I mean people who are self-employed and they go to, for example, Starbucks or hotel lobbies or co-working spaces to work. Or if you take it even further, digital nomads going to countries like they'll go to Mexico or they'll go to the island of Bali. And just work there as a digital nomad and keep on traveling, and all they need is a good computer and Wi-Fi. So I think this is also creating inequality. So first of all, they're living in the good places like Amsterdam, Paris, London, the big cities in the United States. So the places with the good facilities, good infrastructure. They have the means to buy a very good, expensive computer. But at the same time, they're also kind of appropriating, like I call them workscapes with, a little wink to Apadurai. And they'll go to like a relatively cheap place like Bali. For them, it's cheap, and then they work, and the money they're earning is based on what they're earning from a supplier who's in a global north country. So their dollar is worth more there. And I think this is also enhancing the inequality again. So this community that Fatma also referred to, when you're in the right place, it's also because you have the means to do so. You have the possibilities, the money, and also the objects that go with it. So I have some concluding remarks, but also after this, I have a question, and I just want to have a little bit of interaction in that one, even though I know we have a Q&A after this. So I think space of place is still relevant. It's by no means obsolete. It's very utopian to think that that's the case, because the haves can set up camp with mobile devices and have everything they need. The have-nots cannot. So again, space of flows is still very much connected to place. And if the infrastructure is not optimal, participating in the space of flows is just not possible to its full potential. I also think if you take this further, the space of flows feeds the capitalist world and makes the rich places richer and the poor places poorer. And again, this is what I said in the beginning. This goes towards inequality. So the first question I had before I even started making this presentation was, is Castell's trilogy still relevant 25 years later? And I say absolutely yes. And again, the context of an optimal space of place affords a better position in the space of flows. So I think, as I'm I hope I have been able to bring across to you is that the cycle of place and flows, if you have a good space of place, you're in a better position in the space of flows. And this is like a cycle. It enhances each other in an upward spiral, and it creates inequality for the have-nots. And I think that as long as this is not solved, the fruits of the network society will remain in the global north. Then I have a question that I am just curious what your reactions are. I guess you could unmute or put it in the chat. And also I will put this question in for the keynote tomorrow, because I really wonder what Mr. Castell has to say about this himself. So it's a very invisible process, because space of flows is really invisible. But could it be that the global north is slowly conquering the global south by colonizing the space of flows? So that is my ending question, and I know I maybe don't have that much time left. I think I have about 5 minutes, but if you have some reactions in the chat, or maybe by unmuting yourself, I'm curious to know. And hopefully tomorrow, Castells will also answer this question.
Thank you, Fiza. Thank you for that question at the end, and that's really food for thought, and it's a great preamble for our keynote tomorrow, because it starts thinking us. And I'll make sure that Castells get that question.
Thank you.
It is a really important question, and in your presentation, I mean, it was a great illustration and investigation of a crucial point in Castells, as you mentioned rightly, even 25 years ago when he first published it. And I mean, this is a critique that is always addressed to Castells' work, that he's so utopian and so on and so forth. Whereas we know that even 25 years ago, Castells had already said that the space of flows is not necessarily an egalitarian flow where everybody's going to go happy with it, and it's always in terms of access. Yeah, and not all networks are equal, and then not all nodes in a network are not equal. So that's a crucial point. I'm sure there are definitely questions. And then I'd like to go back to the question that you asked at the end of the presentation when we have Benjamin's presentations, and that hopefully that will be a segue into our discussions. Thank you very much. That was a great one. Thank you, Fiza.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So without further delay, let's hear from Benjamin. Benjamin, welcome. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. Just take 2 seconds. Normally, this is okay. I think it's okay for you. You can see my slide. So, as Mehdi presented me, introduced me, I'm Benjamin. I'm PhD candidate in the 4th year, and I work on innovation ecosystem and innovation community and third place, especially only one. Today, I would like to talk about information culture and digital space-time on Slack. So I will present the third place. So this is they work inside this building in the north of France, in the Roubaix city. The name is Plateau Fertile, and they are in an old factory of textile factory. So the past and the history of the north of France means for this community, and they work in fashion and textile community. The main goal is to make the fashion industry more sustainable, because I don't know if you know, but the fashion and textile industry is the same like oil industry, is very polluant. I don't remember exactly. How do you say?
Polluting, Benjamin.
Sorry?
Polluting.
Polluting. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not very fluent in English. Sorry. So Fashion Green Hub is the name of the community. So they started in 2015, and in 2018 they built the third place to be anchor in the space. So in 2020 they started a Slack workflow to make like a twin third place, but not in physical space, but in a digital space. So they do collaborative innovation. There is Fab Lab, Prod Lab, think tank, formation center. They do events, formation, and it's also a co-working space. The only condition to participate to this community is to be professional. You can be a big company with 2,000 of salary, or just a design freelance designer or student, but you should have a professional mindset. That's the only point, because they work on collaborative innovation. We worked. The first question when we worked on this third place was why it existing. So we published something last year or this year, and we observed, we had a reflection from the space to the place, and from the explicit knowledge to tacit knowledge. The question was why this community growth, why they are interesting for a lot of company, of professional, what they have more than other networks. And we observed the principle of three value. What I represent by this TLE is like trust, liability, engagement. So we postulated a process of community building from space that's potential for action, but it's neutral. The space could be the building without a lot of meaning. And because people live inside and work inside, they give meaning and build affordances in this space. So it becomes a place. En français, c'est un espace et un lieu. Le lieu est vécu et l'espace est neutre. And the second part was from explicit knowledge. So, en français, c'est le savoir et la connaissance. La connaissance est idiographique et elle vient de la pratique. Et le savoir est quelque chose de neutre, par exemple, de posséder un livre. So, explicit knowledge, to make reference to Nonaka et Takeshi, explicit knowledge is the field of action and also potential, and tacit knowledge, it's from experiences and culture. And that because trust, liability, and engagement, because they practice. So we observed in a second time, in a second work, second paper, the question was how to become from informal community, like a network. We are not able to say we are, but just I'm in the network. So this is the first step. Issues, context, individual aspiration. How to change from informal community to a formal company. So the first step we observe is existence of issues, context, individual aspiration, and the fact to share it. The second step is a Slack workflow. We can be conscious of the community, of the group. We can work together as a working groups and the informal community. So nothing is right on paper. There is no code book, but it started to become. And but you stay in the low side of the diagram, and rather informal operation based on formal devices like Slack or things like that. In a Slack or other. And after you move in a rather formal functioning based on informal values. So you can observe the association, that is a group in the A's of the law, and our plateau fertile is a third place. So this is something existing anchor in the space. So you exist in the space. And the last step is they build this year l'Atelier Agile. It's a company. And the principle of this diagram is the recovery of the 4 steps. So Atelier Agile is existing because they are based on Fashion Green Hub, and Fashion Green Hub based on working group, informal community, and this based on issues, context, and individual aspirations shared. So we observe they build something like a space, neutral space, and people explain their issues, context, individual aspiration, and with this knowledge shared, they build community. The question that I have now is about information culture. From Shu, information culture refers to a structuring of socially shared behaviors, norms, and values that determine the meaning and use of information within an organization. And he proposed 4 types of information culture: is relationship-based, risk-taking, result-oriented, and rule-following. And as I said, the community of Fashion Green Hub, they are in the 3rd place, and they are on Slack. So today it's a very work in progress. As I said, I had my PhD dissertation to finish. So I'm going to work on this. It's just the beginning. I analyzed their Slack workflow with this concept, and with a reflection about space and time. So I just put example as something like verbatim, a channel, an extract. Hello, I would like to, I need help about that. I'm looking for something, blah, blah, blah. And analyze it. What is the content, orientation, and space-time, information culture, and stuff like that. So it could be dense at the beginning. So the pink part, the pink zone, is about linking. There is no especially time or no space. Is about links. Links is a link is how can we say us? How can we say we are a group? And this channel, I forgot to translate. Sorry, canal 1, 2, 3. So the pink is about link. The yellow is about temporality. So I divided like overall temporality and limited temporality. And the blue, yeah, maybe blue or green, depends, is about space. Limited spatiality. So I observed 3 parts, and I observe also from Shu different type of information culture based on this fourth. Relationship-based, and risk-taking. So about link is a lot of relationship-based. About temporality is more result-oriented and risk-taking relationship-based also. But I observed 2 times result-oriented, 3 times. And limited spatiality is relationship-based. And the last, I put nothing because there is not enough interaction in this channel to analyze something. So I observed the content and the observation, the orientation, like friendliness, presentation, updating. So why this channel is important for people. Operational, sharing, ongoing project. So I just did this data or this result. So I'm going to analyze it and to work on this. And yeah, maybe to understand why, how to combine spatiality, temporality, link between them. Is a channel more important than other? And what about information culture? And what is the link between the physical third place and the community? And can we compare something with a Slack workflow? And could we say the Slack workflow is like a digital third place with, as I observed, with meaning, affordance, experiences, culture, and things like that. That's the. I think I'm done. So if you have, thank you. And if you have maybe criticism or advice, the question, I look for work on Slack, but I didn't find a lot of paper about how to analyze data on Slack. So if somebody have author or things, I would like to take the reference. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Benjamin. Thank you, Benjamin, for that presentation. I learned a few things, so thank you for that. And to the audience, you got Benjamin's questions at the end, so I think he would be very happy to get the references that he's looking for. Okay, so now the panel is open for questions. So as I said, our esteemed audience, you can simply type your questions here in the chat box or in the questions bar here in Livestorm, and now make sure to relay your questions to our panelists. So while you're thinking about the questions, maybe we can start off the discussion. So quick question for you, Fatma. So basically, what I understood from your presentation, the theoretical aspect. So you started by talking about how Henri Lefebvre basically conceptualizes time in terms of rhythm, yeah? And I was wondering, do you think Henri Lefebvre's conception of time as rhythm is compatible really with what Castell calls the timeless time? So if you have timeless time, which is time devoid of its rhythmic, if you want, the bodily rhythmic way we experience time. And I think this is what Henri Lefebvre is talking about when he talks about rhythm. So what do we do with this? Are they compatible? Are they not compatible? Or should we take one in favor of the other? I hope my question is clear. You don't really have to answer it, but I'm just wondering, this has been turning in my head since the first part of your presentation.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, it's very clear. In fact, maybe there is one difference which comes from the criteria that Henry Lefebvre is present, because he diminished the experience like structural and non-structural one. But even I'm not expert of Castell, I didn't see this in this space of flows that we distinguish the space like structure or non-structure, or we distinguish the activity structure or non-structure. In fact, what is the focus of Henry Lefebvre is naturality in the activity. So for that reason, in each chapter of his books, he always mentioned the body.
Yeah.
So I think Castell, he makes his reflections more regarding to technology, to objects, to what we use, what we have in the hands. But Henry Lefebvre, he is kind of like a philosopher, and he focuses on how your activity can take a rhythm thanks to the naturality that you will give it. So his problem is not what the technology change in your activity or what the objects will change in your activity. But he mentions this flow. Then when you mention the flow, then you mention the meaning of the activity. So both of them have this common point, I think, of what meaning we have inside, but how they interpret the meaning is different. One is interpreting, oh, it should be really non-structural. The other one, he doesn't say this. He doesn't say, please give a structure or non-structure. So Fiza, maybe she can complete these because she is more inside of Castell than me. What do you think, Fiza?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree that time is very much linked to technology. So even though there are communal points, as Fatma already pointed out, there actually you said it really clearly. Like Lefebvre is much more like a philosopher, and Castell is, yeah, in that sense, more hands-on. He really links it to something real, like technology.
As a true social scientist,
Yeah.
a philosopher. Yeah, sure. In one of the talks that he gave a few years back, he was asked the question, "What is the place of philosophy in your work?" Somebody asked him. And he said, basically, the sort of theory that he considers as theory always emanates from the fieldwork. So he would never take on a theory and then apply it to a field, but then he works the other way around.
Okay, so, yeah,
that
like ground theory.
What you were saying, Fiza, and so basically, the importance of the localized space. If I want to link your talk to Fiza's, that's really important, and from a bodily position. And here's my question to you, Fiza, which is also a question that I want to address to Castell at some point tomorrow, I hope. Is so the principal source of conflict and resistance, if I want to go back to the political dimension of your talk, Fiza, according to Castell's, is, so in the context of the network society, is the contradiction between the placeless character of the network, and you said that, yeah, they're invisible, but they're everywhere. And so you have, on the one hand, this placeless character of the network, and on the other hand, you have this rootedness of the human meaning, yeah? The rootedness of human meaning and productions of meaning, including time itself as a structuring element. So, and my question is really, and it's really a question, I have no answer to that. So Castell said this about 25 years ago, and my question is this still the case today? Is human meaning still primarily created and processed at the local level? And I think, based on what you said in your presentation, the answer is, did we lose Fiza?
Maybe only a disconnection for a second.
Maybe she just got disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. She can be back. I can ask her the question again in a little while. Let me just see. Rasmus has just posted something. Okay, yeah. So Rasmus is just telling us that if you have questions to the audience, you can type in. So while Fiza is trying to reconnect, But Benjamin, thank you for that presentation, and thank you for that. I didn't know about the place in Roubaix. I had no idea. So that's a good.
Yeah.
And my question to you is this: basically, so you've analyzed this place, basically, what did you call it? The Roubaix Plateau Fertile, yeah?
Yeah.
So have you analyzed other spaces like this in your PhD? So is this a part of the analysis of, do you have other examples, and are they any different from the places?
No, that is, it could be interesting to compare with other third place. I visited some other third place with Fatma, but my PhD thesis is about innovation ecosystem, and in parallel, just in plus, I worked on this, but it's not the core of my thesis. So yeah, I just work on this third place, but it could be interesting to compare, because the fact is, it's like third place for professional. So it different. It's you can be association or collectivity or company, but it's not totally open for everybody. So it could be different from other third place, where the principle at the beginning is be open on everybody.
Okay. I think it would be really interesting to look at other places like this and compare and see if the basically the sort of principles that you got from this analysis would apply to them or not, and then
Yeah.
realize it within what Castell's called really the space of flows. Yeah, great, awesome. I have another question for you, but I'll ask you the question a bit later. So I want to go back to Fiza. Glad to have you back. I don't know how much of the question did you hear. So basically,
I just heard like half of the questions.
okay, so you know what? I'll just go ahead and basically say it again. So the question was, so as Castell really said 25 years ago, even for the first time, and then he really developed it. And for him, in the context of the network society, basically the main source of conflict and resistance is the contradiction between the placeless character of networks, something that you really demonstrated very well in your presentation, how networks, how space of flows is invisible, but it's everywhere at the same time. So on the one hand, you have this placeless kind of character of the network, and on the other hand, you have this rootedness of human meaning and all the production, all the process of human meaning that are localized. That's what Castell's saying, or what he said. So my question is really to you, and I'm going to ask this question at some point to Castells tomorrow, I hope, is this still the case today? With all the digital nomads that you talked about, with all these people working home, working at the office, traveling, and mostly it's the privileged people from the global north really that we're talking about here. But is it still the case that human meaning is still created at the localized space? And that's still the source of conflict between the localized space and the place of networks. I hope
So,
that,
yeah, the quick answer is yes, but I will elaborate. So yes, you are like, kind of rooted in a place, but on the other hand, there's one slide where I said you're like setting up camp, and that is what you can basically do. So if your own private little digital bubble, and you can set up that tent, that you can set up camp. But if you're one of the haves, the ones with the means and the really great computer, and in a place with good Wi-Fi, then you have much more freedom to set up camp in certain places. So yes, you're rooted, but it's not anymore like a house. It's like you and your tent. You can set up your tent anywhere. But again, some people have better tents than others.
So the difference you say is maybe the spaces or the places, the physical places that used to create meanings before, they used to be more permanent, but nowadays they're more temporary. Maybe that's
yeah. And actually, look at now what's happening with COVID. We had this permanent place. It was your office. You went there every time. You were maybe grumbling. You were in a traffic jam, but then you're there, and you have to be there at 9, and then you leave at 5:30. And that whole concept has also changed now, because now it's like, oh, okay, I can be at home and I can do everything that I normally do at the office, except for maybe physically, share some gossip at the coffee machine. But so this whole thing that it has to be a fixed structure with 4 walls in a fixed place, that is changing. So in a way, actually, you could even say the employees of today also, they know that they have a tent. They just need to know where they can set it up, where you have the right Wi-Fi and the right equipment, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense. So because the three of you, you're experts also on the workplaces and so on, I can't help but ask you this question. Yeah, so this panel is the panel about you're the workplace experts. So post-COVID, let's say that this is all over at some point, hopefully. How is this going to change the place work? So would it be possible still for companies to make their employees come to work like full day, or how do you see that? How do you see the trajectory post-COVID?
So this is like all 3 of us going to answer, right? Okay, so I'll just start because I was talking anyway. So I hear already a lot of companies that are realizing it also saves money. So they're already talking about, after COVID, we're going to go to hybrid working, which basically means you don't come to the office 5 days a week. So yes, that's definitely there. Also, the hard and quick way, we had to experience what it was like. But now we're like, okay, you can do this and you can do this and you can use Zoom and you can, and these things, and it's actually quite good. I'm not in a traffic jam anymore. And you can have, in some ways, more meetings because you don't need to travel in between meetings. So I think also in the minds of people, the whole notion of a workplace is this fixed place, it's your office and you have to be there, because if not, you're not really working or it's not going to function. That has been really, in a fast way, crumbling down since COVID. In a way, you could say there's sort of a paradigm shift even in what a workplace is. So that is changing. So I do think people are going to find a new form of hybrid. So they will be at the office sometimes, but they're going to think like, when is it good to be at the office? When is it not needed? There's also this whole, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but there's this thing called activity-based working. But this was more based like in a workspace itself. So you have a concentration space, which is a small room where it's quiet. Then there is the sort of, big space with all the different desks. So it's easier to talk to a colleague and say, hey, do you know what's going on here? Can you answer this? And so you would choose which activity you needed to do, concentration or cooperation or what have you, and you would choose the right space. And I think this has expanded because also now your home could be that, but even Starbucks or a hotel lobby, or even your second home in the south of France, for all that matters. So that was my answer.
Great. Thank you. What do you think, Fatma and Benjamin?
I will give a brief answer. In fact, she's right, Fiza. Maybe we will be more oriented to hybrid work, but there will be new options. Like the other day, I read about Czech co-working spaces. In the university, we have these restaurant tickets. Now there are some organizations who start to create co-working space tickets. So they expect their workers, employees, to come to office sometimes, but not for whole week. For example, you can go to your office like 3 times a week, and the other 2 days they expect you to go to a co-working space. So you will be teleworking, but not from your home, because when you work from home, you have all the comfort, all your own system, but some organizations, they don't have these complete trust, or they prefer that you are always in a professional environment, but at the same time they want to diminish the number of employees who come to the building. So they offer you a work in another place. That's interesting. So I think we will have a lot of promotions like ticket office, or I don't know what kind of other tickets will be coming, but it will be a promotional year, I think, about workplaces for employees.
All right. Thank you, Fatma. But Benjamin, do you have anything to add? Would you like to add anything to what?
Yeah, I think now, do you hear me? It's better. Yeah, I think about I'm trying to find this picture because we talk about placeless, I think. And I observe in my work the space, the importance of the space maybe decrease, but as you Fiza said, the infrastructure is very important, and digital place take more importance, because you, as Fatma, you just said, you can work at your home, in a co-working space, in your office, but you need to find your, I don't know, the code, yeah, something you recognize it. So to illustrate this, I was looking for a picture. As maybe you ever see it. It's like Twitter is like your post-its. LinkedIn is like your agenda and the carnet d'adresse address. So we reproduce all our tools in a digital space. That's why physical space importance decrease. I don't know if I'm clear.
Yeah, it is clear. Yeah.
So because we recreate it, we can move in a physical space, but we are always, not always, but in our environment in a digital network. That is what I wanted to add.
Great. Yes, great point.
It reminds me of a quote of Castell's in this talk he did in Barcelona, where he said something like that at the nucleus of every human action, it's just going from one digital network to the other.
Oh yeah, he said that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting point. At the core of every human, what's that bit?
Yeah, at the core of every human action,
Okay.
it is actually a digital network connecting to another digital network.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of the networks themselves being open systems, always contracting and expanding. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Benjamin, while I had you on the mic, I think I heard you say you were quoting someone. I don't know who you were quoting. Maybe it was true. So your sentence was in French. I'm just going to read it in French again. You said le lieu est vécu, mais l'espace est neutre. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great distinction between lieu and space. Lieu would be the political space because it's a lived experience, whereas space is neutral. But then access to space is not really neutral, is it?
Is a space neutral? Yeah, I think it cannot be totally neutral, because we talked about infrastructure. If you have, I don't know, roads, Wi-Fi, so it's neutral, but it's not totally neutral, because you can have a openness on other space. But we had this reflection because when I interviewed some professional or startups, they was in other incubators, accelerators, and okay, describe your place, and they didn't say c'est chez nous, we are at home. And when I asked some startups in this third place, in this co-working space, they can say, yeah, here we are at home. So I was like, I worked with my director. So we were like, okay, why some say I'm at home and other not? And we describe it about, we observed the diminution of the perceived risk. You have innovation issues, so problematics. So you build the risk, and because you are in the community, you investigate a place, a space. Sorry. So you growth your control of this risk because you shared tools, financial knowledge. So you create meaning of this space in this space. So now you live in, so you can say, this is my home, my home. I don't know if I'm clear.
It is your yes. Thank you for that.
So we use this distinction like neutral and lived.
Okay, that's it. Can I get a reference? Who said that? I really want to look into this a little bit further. Can I get a reference on this? Who
it's not exactly. It's not a quote. But yeah, we worked in with Wenger, and I can find this the bibliography that we use.
I'll email you and then I'll ask you.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Awesome. All right. So we still have some time, and I would like us, if you allow me, to go back to the question that Fiza asked at the end of her presentation, because I think it's a great question and it's great food for thought. So basically, Fiza, your question was, based on what you said and based on the experience and the presentations of the digital nomads who come from the global north normally, and then go kind of colonize, and I need to be very careful with my words, but sort of that's what's happening, go to more cheaper places like Bali and work. And aren't we seeing, and that's your question, a new colonialism of the space of flows itself, by the global north to the global south. So I'm sure you have thoughts on this yourself, Fiza. So I want you to tell us what you think, and maybe hopefully this will open up a little discussion in the remaining time. Go ahead, please.
So if I take it like in a bigger way, in the space of flows, and this is also what Castell said, it kind of is a fuel for the capitalist world, for the world economy. So more money. But again, the ones who have the better space of place, they can participate more, which basically means, because where's the best space of place? It's in the global north, in cities like Amsterdam, Paris, New York, London, etc. So these cities, these are what Castells actually calls like nodes, they are just getting bigger, more successful, even better infrastructure, better housing prices are going up, so I think that because it works together. So I have a really good space of place, then I have a better possibilities in space of flows, which means there's more money, and then it goes up again. I have even a better place and even better flow, and this way I think the rich countries are getting richer and the poor countries are getting poorer. So that's one thing, creating more inequality, but it's like invisible, like you could almost say Foucauldian, and on the more micro level, what you mentioned, indeed, these digital nomads. So they're going to like to Bali, and they're paying maybe 1/3 of what they would have been paying at home, but they're earning the big bucks that they would make at home because they're working for suppliers in the rich global north countries. So this is also creating inequality. And if you take it even further, you could even say, like, all those people who are retired or not retired, they're still working, and they decide, for example, to move to Bali or to Thailand because it's cheaper and it's sunny.
North Africa.
And I think it's also that's what that's the few points that I made. That's what I meant by it's colonizing, but it's in a Foucauldian invisible way. And I really hope that Castells will say something about it tomorrow.
Yeah. and if he doesn't, you'll make sure to make something about that. Yeah, that's a great point.
But you will put the question in, right? So then.
Yeah. But then you type it in the chat box to remind me.
I will.
I'll say that it's Fiza's question. So
okay.
Yeah, definitely. Great. So Fatma and Benjamin and Fiza, do you have anything else you'd like to tell us about? So I had a field day. I got to ask all the questions. So I colonized this space of flows right now here. So and audience, I didn't see any questions from them. So I was.
Camila, she's typing.
Camila's typing.
No, merci à tous.
Okay, cheers. Camila, our dear colleague and friend. So thank you very much for your rich presentations. I really enjoyed chairing this channel. It was a pleasure to have you. I know you've been working on this for a while now with organizing it, Fatma, Fiza, and Benjamin. And we had 3 very, very interesting talks, very linked, and so on. And thank you also very much for keeping your talks brief so we could have this discussion at the end, very stimulating. I really look forward to, take this a little bit further in the future and maybe do something with it, perhaps. There are publications coming afterwards, and I'll tell you all about publications in the closing remarks tomorrow. So make sure to have the text so that we can have your publications as well. It will only improve the publication. So final word, thank you very much, and hopefully see you either this afternoon with the other panels or tomorrow with the keynote. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, merci.